Hello, my name is Bob Reynolds.
Where and when were you born?
I was born in Norwich in 1924. I'm now 94 years of age.
Do you feel like you are 94?
Not particularly, no. I certainly don't feel young.
Physically, what is it like to be 94?
Well, you caught me there, I just don't know. I live life the best I can. It wasn't like I don't.
What branch of the service were you in during World War II?
Well, I joined up in 1942. I joined the Marines, or the Royal Marines, if you like. And I was basically trained on landing craft.
What was your specific job?
Well, I was a corporal, and I was taught to drive all landing craft, and I finished up permanently driving an LCA. A being the LC being landing craft, and the A being assault. And I was placed on assault carrier, which is a ship, and the landing craft were in davits on the ship, the Langeby Castle. The whole thing is, I tell people I was a cox and they don't know what I mean, but I was, yes.
And tell me about the job of a coxswain. What is a coxswain supposed to do?
Well, the coxswain drives like you would drive a car, simply steers the thing. And I was trained on all, there's LCVs, which are vehicles. Anyway, I could drive all of them, but I was primarily on LCAs. I went to France in the Langeby Castle and we stopped about 7 and 9 miles out. We could see France, but the boats were lowered, and when we got into the sea we couldn't see France. And an MT, a torpedo craft came and said to direct us into France, and we followed him in. And I was a facilitator, but we were never in a neat, tidy thing. The sea was so rough. We got battered about all over the place. But I landed the Canadians, Winnipeg Rifles, and another thing I can't remember who they were, at Courcelles in France. We were initially supposed to go on the 5th, but the sea was so rough it never happened, so this was the 6th.
And what beach did you land on?
Juno.
And talk to me about the resistance that your landing craft faced as you went towards the beach.
Well, we had 18 landing craft, and we got scattered all over. The sea was so rough, we got scattered all over the place. But nevertheless, I landed there, didn't I? and I had a reporter in my boot, and he asked me how old I was, and I said about 19. Anyway, we hit the beach, and the ramp was lowered, and he went out. But unfortunately, the machine guns hit him, and down he went, and the boat went over him. So I never got the name in the paper, did I? But I think our area was rather quiet compared with some things I see on television. On the beach were steel girders who had a job to through, and there was plates tied on these girders, and I didn't know at the time, but they were landmines. And of course one of the boats fairly close to me must have hit one, because up it went. And well, that's about all I can say, really. There were 30 men in the landing craft, plus the captain of the flotilla, Captain Byrne, and the reporter, who was a Canadian.
Was the reporter the only one that was killed? Did everyone else get off okay?
Well, that I don't know. They just charged up the beach. Some were fallen and some weren't. And whether they were killed or wounded, I got no idea. We landed about a little after 6 o'clock in the morning. You see, we had to have a motor MTB take us in, because we didn't know where we were. After that, it didn't have to happen because the boats were going back and forward. Oh.
What do you remember seeing on the beach?
Well, not too much, really. I look at films now and I hear people talk about the sea, red with blood. Well, I never looked at the sea, and I think we were lucky, really, where we went compared with others. Not only that, at this particular time when we landed at 6 time, the Germans weren't aware. But later on in the day, we'll say at 10 o'clock, they woke up to the fact that the opposition was terrific everywhere.
So after you dropped off the first Canadian troops, what did you do?
Yeah, well, my captain said to me, go back in. And I said, well, there's no point of going back in because we won't get out through these steel reinforcements. And so we sailed up and down the beach, not too far, but a mile either way, I suppose, looking for our chaps or any old boats that we could salvage. Because as I said, anyway, we then went back to the ship, and there was, out of the 18 boats, there was only 3 boats what were back then. And I've since been told that a lot of them were swamped with the heavy seas. The sea was, I won't say it was rough, that it was heaving up and down. And well, that was just a bad thing for us. That was bad enough to swamp a lot of the landing craft.
And so, take me through, what do you do for the rest of the day?
Well, for the rest of the day, we were sailing up and down trying to salvage something of our flotilla. And from there on in, we went back to the carrier to get more troops. And they were getting, some of the troops are coming down the side of the ship on scramble nets. So it was fairly empty by the time we got back. So we then came back to England. And we then spent our time taking further troops to France. In some cases, even American nurses.
How did you first find out about the invasion of France? And how did you all prepare for the invasion of France?
Well, we first found out, I mean, the whole thing was secret, but we first found out because I was on the salt carrier at the time, and we were given French francs, so we knew we were going to France. It wasn't generally known, but we knew we were going to France, and that was supposed to be on the 5th of June. But the sea was so rough they cancelled it.
But did you guys make any practice landings in the UK?
Oh yes, all the while. We had some funny things happened. We went out to sea once and what happened was some German E-boats got between us and the shore, and we couldn't even get back. Their E-boats were much faster than ours, and we just had to lay out there before we were allowed to come back in when these E-boats had gone. But they caught, I don't know the whole story, but lots of Americans were killed.
Yeah, Operation Tiger.
Huh?
It's called Operation Tiger.
Oh, you know about it. Yeah.
So after your time as a Royal Marine, when you were working as a coxswain,
Yeah.
then what did you do?
Well, I was getting fed up with the idea of running back and forwards and getting nowhere, so I volunteered for the commandos. I thought I would walk straight into them, but things didn't work like that. I then had to, because the commandos originally were army, and so I then had to go to Scotland to Hackney Carry and train there under the army. And really speaking, I done all my training with the army, but when I passed out, I was then detailed to go to the 46 Commando, which I was on.
Where did you join 46 Commando?
Wait, what?
Where did you join 46 Commando?
Oh, I don't know. I know one thing. When we were landed, just me and someone for number 6 Commando, as an army chap, we landed in at Bruges, and we had to find our own way to find the commandos because no one knew where they were. But we did find them, and I just exactly where it was, I've no idea, but I know it was after the Rhine. So quite a large bit of the war was over by then.
Talk to me about your first experience in combat with the commandos.
Well, the first experience, we were told to clear this wood, and that was fairly easy really. We simply waded through, firing at the Germans, but they disappeared rather quickly, so it didn't last too long. The commander lost one or two men, but I wouldn't know who. My book would tell us anyway. And we were then sent back to England, and we were issued with American Rifles, American great-grandads, because our brigade was supposed to go to Japan, yeah. And the trouble with the English ammo was 303, and American ammo was 300. So rather than get mixed up, we were issued with American great-grandad rifles. And we were about ready to go. Well, we were ready to go full stop. But along came the atom bomb, and Japan gave in. So we never got to go to Japan.
Talk to me about the training that you received in order to become a Royal Marine Commando.
Well, it was supposed to be the hardest training you could get. The colonel in charge of anti-carry said, you're here, but we'll make this far harder than you will meet when you get into active service. And we never walked anywhere, we always doubled everywhere. And we had training on most arms, some German arms as well. Anyway, it was just purely an infantry training, but physically stronger than the normal army would do. Speed marches, I only knew speed marches. You never sauntered anywhere, that was always at the double.
Did a lot of people wash out of the training?
Huh?
Did a lot of people wash out?
Yeah, well, I won't say a lot, but some did. You had to pass out.
What was the main reason people would wash out?
Well, I suppose they just couldn't. It was just too much for them. As I say, I trained with the army. Well, simply because the army had initiated the commando. But it was unbelievable. The commando, initially they were attacking a German fortification. They were in a field of corn, and the corn was waist high. So they were marching in line, firing from the hip. And we lost, well, we didn't lose, and 10 men were hit. Though they didn't all go down, but when we took I say we, I wasn't there. when we took the German fortification, we'd killed 110 Germans. For the simple reason the corn was stopping the bullets. Sounds a bit funny, don't it? But it's logical when you go out. It would happen, keep eating. I saw plenty of dead horses, but Germans used horse transport a lot, didn't they? And I suppose it just depends where you were, whether you came across the things.
Were you ever under German artillery fire?
Yes.
Can you talk to me about your experiences under German artillery?
Well, yeah, usually the blessed things went off way ahead of you. Artillery. You were just hoping they didn't get close to you. I was lucky enough that they didn't get close to me. A friend of mine, he got caught and got shrapnel in the lung. But I was never that close.
Did he survive?
Oh yes, yeah, he did. Well, he was taken to hospital and I suppose they took out.
Did you provide first aid to any of the wounded men around you?
No, that's not our job. Our job was to kill the enemy. There was all medics who were always behind, picking up people who were injured.
So, just to backtrack a little bit, you mentioned that you were born in Norwich?
Yeah.
Did you grow up in Norwich?
Yeah.
Talk to me about growing up in Norwich. What kind of things did you do for fun as a kid?
Oh, good Lord, I don't know. Well, I was, when I was 5 years old, we moved from City Road down to the Leighton Estate. And down Leighton Estate we were close to the river and close to the swimming baths. So we used to spend the time down the river, fishing, swimming, anything that any country boy would do. And I suppose in that respect you'd call me a country boy.
Before the war broke out, what were you planning on doing with your life?
Oh, God knows. I don't know. Oh, I started off. I left school at 14 and I got a job as a clicker. A clicker simply is somebody who cuts the skin up for shoes, cuts with a knife, with a pattern, and I worked there. You're asking me things to remember 60, 70 years ago, aren't you? And that's not easy. But anyway, I got fed up with that and oh yeah, well then of course I joined up. And I joined up at 17. Having said that, that wasn't long before I was 18, but I would have been called up anyway.
How?
And then, of course, after the war, I went back as a clicker, but I didn't like that, so I volunteered. The government was doing courses for troops, and I learned to be a bricklayer. And that's what I finished up being, bricklayer, and I finished up as a builder. And I built this house that we're in now, and all these houses opposite.
How did you hear about the declaration of war? When Great Britain declared war on Germany, how did you hear about it?
Yeah, how did I hear about it? Well, I had a girlfriend at the time. I was about 16, and we were out doing picking blackberries. And when I got home, I can remember my mother saying, "We're at war, but you won't have to go, you're too young," which I was. Like everybody else, they thought that would be over in a matter of months. Of course it wasn't on it.
What do you remember about the bombing raids that the German planes did over England?
Well, they hit Norwich once or twice. That they gave them a name. I don't know, there's Bodega raids. I'm not sure, but they on Carrow Hill they dropped a bomb there, and when everybody was leaving off work, and there was absolute dozens of people killed. I can remember when I had a canoe, and I had a hole in the bottom because we'd been rough with it, and I had a fire down the meadow, and we were doing tar to tar the bottom of the canoe, and over came a German fighter plane, diving looks as if they were straight at us, but you could nearly touch the blessed thing. But it was then when they bombed Carrow Hill and Bolton and Paul's, I think they were after. But that was my first taste of warfare. All people of 18 were called up, or if you were fit, that's so. But I was 17, and I thought I might as well go and join up where I want to go. So I volunteered for the Marines. But I was only in there probably about a month, and I was then 18, so I would have been called up anyway.
And take me through, why did you choose the Royal Marines?
Why? God, no, I don't know. Well, for one thing, we thought they were seagoing, which of course they are, but all the conscripts never got to see a boat, a ship, did they? They were put in infantry battalions. I mean, you tell me what young people think, I don't know.
And what was your serial number?
Chatham X 109477. You see, the Marines had various, they had the Chatham Brigade, Plymouth Brigade, Portsmouth Brigade, but I started off in a Chatham, square bashing.
And what troop were you in?
X-troop.
And what was your specific job in X-troop?
Well, you're just a subsection commander, aren't you? Looking after a Bren gun and 2 or 3 blokes to go with it. And as I say, I doubt for whether you had a specific job. You just did what your superiors told you to do.
Tell me about the river crossings that you made as a commando.
Depending what sort of river it is, you wade across. The Rhine, you didn't wade across. You had to have a boat that's deep. Some of the rivers are, well, they're actually streams, aren't they? I mean, you put a name to them all, sort of that book, but I never knew the names.
Do you remember taking on enemy fire as you guys crossed the rivers?
Yeah, you get what you call a crack thump. When, and I can't remember how that worked out really. Crack thump. Crack is the first thing you hear is a bullet over your head going thump. And you hear that before you actually hear the gun going off at you. All that sort of thing is per infantry training, and I just don't remember. Well, I was the coxswain of an LCA, which is a land and craft assault. I was on a assault ship. The boats were in davits where lifeboats would have been, and that was converted, and we had 18 boats, and we could see the French shore. But when we got down in the boats, you obviously couldn't see it, so we had a motor torpedo come up which said, "Follow me and I'll take you in." And we followed him, because as I say, we couldn't see the shore. We'd have probably been going backwards. Anyway, we followed him till we got in full sight of the shore. And he said, "I'll leave you now. Your place where you're going is straight in front of you." And we landed in Courcelles, Samir. Samir being on sea. Anyway, my particular little incident, we were taking the Canadians, the Winnipeg Rifles, and Virginia Rifles, I think they are, and the ramp went down, and we had a journalist on board was asking me how old I was, and I said about 19, and I thought, well, I'm going to get my name in the paper. Anyway, when the ramp went down, he was virtually the first person out of the boat. But he must have been machine guns, because the guns started then, and down he went. He was off the boat then, and then the boat shot forward. We must have been on a sandbank, and the boat went over him. So I never got my name in the paper. See, the driver of LCA, or the coxswain, he's smack up at the front. He's in front of all the troops. Of course, he doesn't do the landing, the troops do that. And we had 30 Canadians on, plus my captain, who was in charge of the flotilla, which put me in charge of it really, but there. And what you don't know is the stinking smell of it all. But, as I say, you don't see the fire, you hear it. Cordite, if you know what cordite smells like, guns going off. It's just a burnt smell, isn't it? But at that time, though that was hell on earth, that wasn't anywhere near as bad as it was a couple of hours later. The Germans had all woken up by then. And there's no doubt about it. I mean, the British were on our left and the Americans were on our right. And there's a funny thing, you talk about Americans, I had orders about a couple of days afterwards to go back and see if they could find our boats what were missing or any of our blokes. And when we got to the shore, the Americans were on the beach. They had a big machine and they were making donuts. The guns were going off fairly loud, so they weren't that far away. And there's the Americans making donuts. And of course we had a rifle, and we stick the rifle out, and they put all the donuts on the banner. And I think they were quite happy to give us them. But they had all these steel rods and crosses and that sticking up, which you had to wade through, and wired on them were plates. And I had no idea what the plates were. We were never told such a thing, but when one boat hit one, I learnt pretty quick then they were mines. And my captain wanted me to go back sailing through them. And there's one thing about when you're a coxswain, he's a captain, but I'm still in charge of the boat. And that's my responsibility to keep it safe. And that wouldn't have been safe sailing through mines, which were very likely to get banged up against. You don't even have to stare, the sea was smashing you against them.
Did you have to bring back the wounded men?
No.
So how many more times did you go back and bring troops onto the beach?
No. We then had to go, we sailed up and down looking for, left and right looking for our men, because the boats had all disappeared.
Wait, were you looking for wounded men, or who were you?
Anyone. I have to do what the captain said, do it. See if you can find some of our chaps. We were looking for our own people. I mean, the beach was pretty cleared by then. That's the worst place you can be from a soldier's point of view, on the beach, and you get off the beach and get on to get some cover somewhere.
Did you see any of the German pillboxes on the beach firing?
No. Where I was, that was Corsells, and that was a little town, I suppose. There was to our left. And I can't even remember that now. But they fortified all the houses everywhere, didn't they?
How close did you bring the men to the shore?
I'd want to land them.
Yeah.
Well, as far as you can get. I'll probably no more than that from here to that garage there. Probably about 20 feet, probably less than that, because our boats were flat bottomed and we virtually landed on the beach, virtually.
And what do you remember about the boat that hit the mine? How close was that boat to you?
20, 30 yards, I suppose. Well, it just went up, didn't it? And I can remember looking at the coxswain, who I knew, but I can't recall his name now. I remember looking at him, and he was grinning at me, and I was pleased to see someone there, but then they all went up. And what happened to them then, God knows. Yeah, just an explosion, yeah.
How many men was he carrying on that boat?
Same thing as me, 30 odd.
Did you see any of them in the water?
No, I wasn't looking for that, was I? I can't remember. Oh yeah, I was seeing people in the water, of course I was. In fact, one of my crew said, look at that thing, that's one of our blokes was swimming with one leg off. Little isolated instance like that. Yeah, I remember seeing dead bodies in the water, yeah. And I can remember seeing, as I say, one of our blokes was trying to swim with one leg off. That's warfare, that's a dirty business.
What happened to that man without
No idea. We're all busy looking after ourselves, aren't we?
What life advice do you want to give to future generations?
Well, for God's sake, don't go. For some unknown reason, the human race is bent on killing itself. And war is a bad business. But we're still having wars, aren't we?
What do you want to say to all the men who were killed overseas in World War II? What would you want them to know?
Well, I don't know, you're catching me up. I don't know, I have no idea. I could just hope, like they said before, they didn't die in vain.
Were you afraid of getting killed when you were in the war?
No, funny enough, no. I mean, I've heard people say, anyone who say they weren't scared are liars. Well, I won't go along with that, because you're too busy doing your own job to feel scared. That's a funny business, really. As I say, you're too busy trying to save yourself, if you like. So you aren't thinking about being scared, are you? We had a job to find the blessed commando when we went. I was with another bloke looking for number 6. And there was since you mentioned it, there was a tank transport came past, and we were told they were over there somewhere. So we hopped on this tank transport, and that carried us up the road, because we've been walking for a couple of weeks, and when we got up the road they shouted, "This is as far as you go, you better jump off." Well, I jumped off, and so did this bloke who was going to 46, but he jumped off with his back towards the way, back towards the front, and he hit the ground and smashed his head on the ground, and he was covered in blood, and I took his thing out, I forget what you call it, and bandaged his head up, but he couldn't carry on. So I then left him with some unit who happened to be there, and I carried it on my own. Till I met, I think, that well, anyway, I did find him. I just got pushed into X-Troop, and that was that.
Good.
And we had to take this wood, or we had taken the wood, but we had to advance through the wood. And of course there was all Germans flying about, weren't they, firing at us. But it wasn't too bad. Whatever you saw, you'd pull the trigger at it.
Would you see the Germans drop? How long did the firefight last in the woods?
Oh, blast, I don't know. 2 or 3 days, I think, off and on, because we were slowly going through there. I can't remember exactly.
And to talk to me about, did the Germans use any artillery in the woods?
No.
No tree bursts?
No. Well, there's Germans in the wood trying to defend it, and there's you coming through trying to take it.
Would you come across the German casualties as you moved forward?
Yeah, I had 1 or 2, yeah. But the salute is different. A naval salute is that way, army salute is that way.
Okay, so do the naval then. Big smile. Smile.
Yeah. I'm not very good at smiling either.
Just try. 1, 2, 3, smile.
Yeah.